All right, on to our first interviewer this morning. And I think a very interesting thing's happened in the last 2-3 weeks. I think one political party has decided that the issue of climate change vis-a-vis the Paris Accord is going to be one of the cornerstones of their campaign. It's ACT. And ACT ain't messing around saying, let's modify, let's do zero carbon. They've said we need to get out of the Paris Accord. It has got to go. And I think that is a significant political strategic move for ACT. It puts them out very clearly on this argument, out on their own. We've talked to Winston Peters about it, and he says, it's very difficult, And Tim Gross has been on with me and on with Michael, former Trade Minister, saying, it's not as simple as it seems. Well, is it or not? One organisation that has been beating this drum consistency long before ACT decided to put its stake in the ground is Groundswell, the homegrown farmers movement that has been making waves in its own unique way for, 3 or 4 years now. Bryce McKenzie is their spokesman. He joins us by video link now. Bryce, good to see you again, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Sean. Good to catch up again.
All right. Hey, you must have been pleased that ACT say, okay, we're not messing around anymore. That's our policy. Get out of Paris.
Yeah, we're thrilled about it, for them to come out so positively about it. Yeah, we couldn't have been more thrilled.
Okay, but we've got a whole lot of people, including Winston Peters and former trade ministers and the government and Todd McClay saying, unfortunately, Paris is baked into a whole lot of trade agreements that we've got, and we put them all at risk if we just walked away from Paris.
Yeah, look, there's probably a good point in that too. The whole thing really needs to be assessed, and I think what ACT's come out with and said we need to get like-minded people together or other food producers and start working on getting our settings right before we perhaps just completely walk away. Of course, America has walked away, but they probably have far more clout than what we've got.
All right, so you do accept that an immediate severance, if you like, or disconnection from the Paris Accord might be as bad as the Paris Accord itself in terms of consequences for our farming communities?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it would be just as bad as being part of it, because everybody talks about the cost of pulling out, but nobody talks about the cost of staying in the Paris Agreement. And of course, most of our trees planting around New Zealand is directly linked to our emissions targets in the Paris Agreement. So, and beef and lamb have just done an assessment, and they think there'll be another 650,000 hectares converted to pines by 2050. So, we just can't keep planting New Zealand out in pines, and that's with the new settings of the class of land that can be planted in pines. So this is costing New Zealand millions as we go along, Sean, all the time.
Yeah. And the other thing, I guess, if you're going to walk away, really, fundamentally, Bryce, it is coming down to saying climate change hysteria, man-made climate change, is not the existential threat that Greta Thunberg and the rest of them have been telling it is for 20 years. That really the emperor has no clothes. It's quite a fundamental change. We're asking people to change their religion, aren't we?
Yes. Yeah, exactly right, Sean. There's so much money being invested into climate change and the cost involved and everything you do. And I think David Seymour summed it up wonderfully when he said that there's nothing you can do now that is not having an effect on our emissions. So therefore, we're paying the cost the whole time, and it's driving New Zealand, I wouldn't say to poverty at this stage, but it certainly is curtailing our chances of a better standard of living.
All right. So does Groundswell say vote ACT?
we have to be very careful, Sean. Look, we would hate to think that we had changed the government into a left-leaning government, but so, yeah, we'd like people to vote on the right side rather than the left side.
All right. How is the organisation? Because I guess a year, 2 years ago, you were riding high. You were tractors all over the place and marches around the country. Have you got that level of interest, or have things levelled out a bit?
Oh, look, there's been some massive changes by this government, and we can't take that away from them. They've done some wonderful things and made life farming much easier regulation-wise. We still have to be totally transparent in what we're doing, but it does make it easier on us to do our job. So, they've done a really good job, and we've got to give them credit for that.
Okay, which takes some of, I guess, the passion out of your movement, because you've achieved a lot of the things that you wanted to achieve, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the whole thing is that when farmers are doing well, they don't want to get in tractors and go out and annoy people. So, and you would have to say that farmers are doing reasonably well at the expense of perhaps being able to stand up and further the cause for New Zealand. We've just got to bide our time, because farmers don't want to be motivated into protesting.
All right. Would you like to see movement? I mean, I think New Zealand First is in spirit with you on the Paris Accord, though Mr. Peters, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, is being more circumspect about how you get there. Do you think the National Party need to move their position more towards ACT or New Zealand First on Paris?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to understand why they've been so hard-nosed about this. Even a concession of saying, well, we perhaps need to look at it, would probably have suited farmers far better. And most of New Zealanders, this is just not confined to farming. This affects everybody in New Zealand one way or another. So I'm surprised that National haven't said, well, we need to look at it. Because at least that gives them an out later on, because if this becomes an election issue, it may cost them dearly.
Yeah, okay, so you want to put a bit of pressure on National to, if you like, join the movement, don't you?
Yeah, well, to at least look at it, Sean. They've just shut the door on it at this stage, and they can't really afford to do that because it's costing the country too much money.
Yep, I hear you, absolutely. Bryce, always a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Go well.
Thanks very much, Sean. Enjoy chatting to you.
Cheers. That's Bryce McKenzie. He is from Groundswell. Well, they're like the radical. They're like Federated Farmers, but they're radical, mate. Radical. Sean, Groundswell wants communism stopping how people use their land. John the lefty. Yeah, John, you're an idiot. Just quietly.